Hi, we're going to put a CraftLander 4,500 pound vertical hoist together. Here's what you'll commonly see with a shipment or a dealer would receive like this. You've got, these are called the front to back tubes, the carriage. They run with the boat up and down. This is a package you're going to get, the columns, the bottom spreaders. There's two pieces of banding that needs to be removed on it. These are your beams that your boat sits on. They kind of look like an I-beam except they got a web. These are your vinyl bunks the boat's going to sit on, and another twin beam. You're going to have your hardware package, your winch, and your wheel. So the first thing to do, get everything broke apart. Be careful with the banding. It can kind of snap a little bit. It can be sharp. Get the plastic off the end so we're ready to put it together. I've taken some of the parts out of the bundle. What I've taken out is the 4 winch columns, and they're all a little bit different. I'll try to explain to you what they are. Right now, if I'm standing in the center of the hoist, the winch column is on my left-hand side, my front left-hand side. That would be that column. It's the longest column in the package. The column to the rear of that is got a welded fitting on the end of it. 2x4 welded fitting. Okay, those two face each other. There's a short clamp that's going to face this one, and we're going to put a tube in those short clamps that connect them together. And this here is going to be going into this tube, and the same thing down here, we call it a T-clamp, is going to be going inside this tube. So right now I think I got things just kind of spread out where they belong. These are some bottom plates. They're made out of steel, and they go in all 4 corners, so I randomly have them spread out at the corners. We'll attach those during the process. This beam here is a front to back lower member. It's 112 inches long. It's either a 2x5 or a 2x4. The 45s would be 2x5. The 35s would be a 2x4. And the 25s would be a 2x3. So they're all 112 long, except for the 25s going to be 100 inches long. This piece of tube here we call a bottom spreader. On the 45 108s, they're an inch shorter, so they're 107 long. On the 114s, they're 113. On the 120s, they're 119 inches. This tube here is the same as that tube. It's 112 inches long, either a 2x5 or a 2x4. This tube I got set to the back side here goes up above. I just have it sitting there temporarily, but it goes up on the top of the column. This is a column directly across the hoist from the winch column. They are 66 inches long. It's the same as the rear one, and the only difference between them is the clamps are bolted on. It's a mirror image of one another. So the clamps are bolted on a little bit different. You got the T clamps always face inwards, which would be this one. And the L clamps, which is this here, go from front to back. T's go side to side, L's go front to back. So I've got everything spread out here so we can kind of start sliding things together. I've also got the legs over here. We've got 4 pieces of tube, 2.5 tube that are 54 inches long, the bottom plates for the legs, and the brackets for the legs, and that's where we'll start putting things together, the legs. Okay, probably the easiest thing to start off with as far as putting the boat lift together is the leg assembly. And what you're going to have is there's going to be 4 legs that look like this, 54 inches long. You're going to have 4 of these pads. These go on the leg bottom. And this is what we call it, a pad bracket. The pad bracket is bolted to the pad with a carriage bolt and a nut securing it, just like you see here. This one's all put together. There's a 3/8 by 3.5 going through the bracket here. You can kind of tighten it up somewhat tight. It does have the ability to hinge a little bit back and forth. So we got a carriage bolt on the back side, the 3/8 nut, and over here too, and then you got the 3/8 by 3.5 bolt here. So that's probably the first thing to do is get those put together, and then we'll slip them inside the column. We're going to put that assembled leg into the bottom of the column leg. There's 4 columns. You want to make sure that these holes line up with the hole in the column. So we're going to put her in there. I usually will set it to build it at this hole. This is the lowest setting for shallow water, but I usually set it in here because it's going to be easier to put together, and you'll see why in a little while. But I usually set it this one or a little bit higher when I'm putting it together. Don't set it this one or it's going to be hard to get some of the cables on later. So I'm going to line that hole up there with that hole, and a 3/8 by 3.5 goes through there, which I don't have on me. But anyway, you put a 3/8 by 3.5. There's a 3/8 nut that goes in the back side. After you get that in there and then bolt in there, I want to show you the corners of the hoist. I'm kind of standing in the center of the hoist right now. This is going to be my winch column. This is going to be my column in back of the winch. We call it an opposite column sometimes. These are on the opposite side of where the winch is. There's, we call them a non-winch column. These have clamps bolted onto the bottom. We call this a T clamp, we call this an L clamp. The T clamps are always going to face towards the inside of the hoist, and the L clamps are going to run from front to back or back to rear, depending how you have them set. The difference between this column and that column is just a mirror image. The clamps are bolted on different. That's the only difference between the two. They're 66 inches long, and they go on the opposite side of the winch. I got things kind of laid out where they go to kind of help. Maybe it'd be easier putting together maybe if you kind of put things where they belong. The winch column's the longest column we have. It is 8 foot long. And again, you got the T clamps going to be going inside. The L clamps going to be going front to back. This will be the opposite column. This one has a welded on bracket on it, so that's going to help distinguish between it. And again, the T clamp runs from inside to inside. The L is going to run from front to back. So what we can start doing is standing these columns up. I'll start with the winch column. Have the leg already inserted. What you want to do is insert this 5x2 tube. It's 112 inches long. There's 2 holes in the center, and if you look closely there, those holes go towards the top, not the bottom. And you'll see why later, why those go towards the top. But they're 112 long. 3500 is a 2x4, and it's 112 long. The 4500 is a 2x5, 112 long. So what we do is we'll put that tube inside the front to back bracket, the L bracket. Then we can drop a 3/8 by 6 bolt through it to kind of keep it in place. The side to side member is going to be an inch shorter than the beam of your boat. If your boat's 108, this will be 107 long. It's a 2x5 for the 4500. The 3500 is a 2x4. Again, we drop it in there, drop the bolt through, and we're good to go. Now we're going to want to do that on all 4 corners, and that's, by doing that, we're going to have the columns going upright. Everything will be kind of loose. And after we do that, we can kind of put the bottom plate on. These galvanized corner plates go on the corners. We'll put those on here in a minute. But let's first get the corners all set, and then we'll come to this point here. But don't worry about putting nuts on them right now. We'll put the nuts on when we put the plates on.